Hi, welcome to a special Labor Day edition of Monday in My Classroom. So since it is Labor Day, we're going to try and decrease our labor. If you're like me, then you put a high value on a really good and powerful review game. Something interactive that gets your kids engaged with the material, and sometimes you just don't have it in you to put that much labor into creating something powerful enough to be worth your time. Jeopardy games are great, but they take a lot of setup. I've done auction games and Twister, factoid review games and all sorts of crazy stuff, scavenger hunts, and they're great, they're wonderful, and they need to be in my classroom on occasion, but I don't always have the time or energy or creativity to come up with something that engaging. But I still want my kids to review, and I still don't want it to be boring, not for me or for them. So I came up with this little gem, and I'm going to share it with you. It's a whole lot of fun. It's really insightful for both you and the student. Okay, so all you need is at least 1/4 of a piece of paper for every student. You're going to have each student write a question. Depending on your particular group, you may find it helpful to write STEM questions up on the board to model the kind of thing you're looking for. But as a general rule with my kids, all I had to say was create an appropriate question that addresses the material that we're covering. They don't have to know the answer to the question that they're writing. That's not the point. They're not going to correct their own question. So you are going to have them write a question, a serious question, about the material. So I've got my pen, I've got my paper. What do the ducks represent in The Catcher in the Rye? And I write my name on it so my teacher knows who wrote the question. I fold it up. My teacher says mingle. So everybody gets up, walks around, and passes the question off to somebody else. Person number 2 opens up the question, reads it. Eesh. Person number 2 has to answer that question off the top of their head. Person number 2 only read the Spark Notes. They did it 3 weeks ago, and they didn't pay attention in class, but they do remember that on the cover of the book it looks kind of like a city, so they're going to make a guess. The ducks represent city life, okay? They don't have to put their name. They're going to fold this up, and they're going to hand that to a third person. Person number 3 is going to open it up. They're going to read the question, they're going to read the response, and the first thing they're going to do is evaluate that response. Is it correct or is it incorrect? They're going to write correct or incorrect. On this one, they should write incorrect. So they're going to write incorrect, and then they're going to have 10 minutes to go and delve into any resource that they believe that they have available to them. That means class blog, any information that's on there, PowerPoints, class notes, whatever, their own class notes. Oh, goodness gracious, the text itself. The only thing that they can't access is the person sitting next to them. So they're going to go into that. They have 10 minutes to find evidence to support their version of an answer to that question. If they agree with the response, if when they evaluate that response they say, oh yeah, that's correct, they still have to go in and find evidence to support why they believe that answer is correct. And they're going to list that here. They probably don't want to write a whole paragraph. They won't have time for that. They're just going to gather evidence and write it down in some sort of list or bullet points or something that really clearly communicates to you, the teacher, what they believe is evidence to support it. Then they're going to go ahead and fold that up and hand it to you. You are going to open it up and read the question and read the response, open it up for discussion with the whole class, and then read out the evidence that was listed by your third person. So that by the end of this review activity, everybody has heard as many questions as there are people in your class. Everybody has had a chance to interact with, personally, at least 2 other questions. and everybody's had a chance to discuss every question and ask questions that they have on their minds. Depending on how many kids you have or how much time you have for your class, you could get through 2 sets of these and cover a whole lot of information, much more in-depth than you would cover in a Jeopardy review game. Although Jeopardy review games are fun and they do have their place. Not knocking the Jeopardy review game. But this one requires very little preparation on your part, and yet really gets the kids involved and interacting with the material. You also learn so much from this game. Well, maybe game is a strong word. Activity. So much. So what you learn from that first round is the things that they don't feel confident about. They're going to be asking questions, mostly. You'll have 1 or 2 kids that ask the question that they know the answer to, because that's what they always do. But for the most part, you're going to have kids asking questions that they don't feel confident about themselves. They don't know that material, that's why they're asking. So you're going to know the holes in, everybody's knowledge, and that's part of the reason why I make on the question, the students write their name next to it. Nobody else has to write their name for the answers, right? Just for the question. Then you are going to, because you will have observed and you will know who wrote the answers to the questions, but you will know who's struggling with the material, with pulling material straight from their head. If they don't have to support it, they just have to have some sort of knowledge of an answer to that question. Who really struggled with that? Who was unable to do that? And those are the kids that you're really going to try and work with to catch them up, if you can, and if you have, if you're so inclined. In that third one, you are going to learn what they believe they have available to them for preparation for these tests, exams, and quizzes. You as the teacher may feel like you have a million resources in place and that they're easily accessible, but I found that a lot of students don't necessarily know what they actually have available to them or how to apply those materials in preparing for an exam. A lot of students are stuck in, that what's in my head phase. They know they can go to the book, but they don't necessarily remember where to find the information in the book. So you as the teacher can use the process that you watch them go through for that third question to figure out where are the holes in their knowledge, their study skills knowledge, right? And how can you bolster that? And the kids get tons of interaction with many different questions, and they actually have a lot of fun. If you have a chance to do a second round, I don't think I've ever had a class do a second round that didn't try to strategize with their answer to the second question, or with their second response. So the questions are written, and then in the second time that the game gets played, usually the person who has the question, who responds to the question first from their mind, they try and throw off the people who are going to come in the third round. So they'll purposefully misrepresent their answer so that they can try and, nab the person who they're going to give the paper to during the third mingle. So it becomes a lot of fun. I know it doesn't necessarily sound like it's a lot of fun, but you will be surprised. And it goes pretty quickly after the first time. The first time you do this, you may only get through 1 round of questions, but the second or third time you do this, and I don't recommend doing it more than 3 times in a year, but the third time you do it, oh my goodness, they've got it down to a science and they really enjoy it, and they're asking really pertinent questions that you didn't have to prepare at all, and you're hitting them the students right where they need to be hit, which, you may not have your thumb on the pulse of where they feel they need to be. I know we all try, but we don't necessarily know what they don't know. So it's a great and enlightening and revealing activity that requires almost no preparation on your part, and you can use it at any time with almost any grade. I don't recommend using it with 7th or younger. I find that the quality of the questions just isn't quite there yet. So maybe you could prepare some questions for them and then go through this. And that would just be a little bit of preparation on your time. So There we go. In less than 10 minutes, I just gave you an amazing review activity that you can use. Take it, make it your own, decrease your labor, and have a great week.